On November 6, 2023, Nick Robertson was called up to the Toronto Maple Leafs for the 4th time in his career, and subsequently, I wrote an article about what type of impact he could have in the Maple Leafs lineup. Now, almost 4 months later, in wake of the Calle Jarnkrok injury, as well as the Ilya Lyubushkin acquisition, Nick Robertson has been sent back down to the Marlies. Let's go back 4 months to see the expectations we had for Robertson, the early season storylines, as well as what's next for Robertson and the Maple Leafs. So to this point, Robertson has played 41 games. That's a full half season in the NHL in 2023-24. That is the most extended look in the NHL to this point in his career, and it's not even close. The last 3 call-ups lasted 6, 10, and 15 games respectively. In his 41-game call-up this year, Robertson has notched 8 goals, 11 assists for 19 points. One of the major points of analysis of my article back in November is how Nick Robertson would fit on the third line alongside Calle Jarnkrok and Max Domi. To that point of the season, Max Domi had yet to score a goal, and the hope was that Nick Robertson's speed, as well as his overall offensive abilities, would help get Max Domi going offensively. The Robertson-Domi-Jarnkrok line actually got quite an extended look as they played 26 games as a unit. They weren't bad per se, posting a 54.4% expected goals percentage, but as Sheldon Keefe would put it, they were just vanilla. More to the credit that Max Domi came into his own as the playmaker that he is, rather than Robertson disappointing performance-wise, that third line of Jarnkrok, Domi, and Robertson was eventually broken up and replaced by McMahon, Tavares, and Robertson, shifting Tavares into a checking role, while Domi was upgraded into a more offensively gifted environment with Nylander and Bertuzzi. This new look second and third line for the Maple Leafs proved to be exactly what they needed, as it became Sheldon Keefe's set-it-and-forget-it lineup for the majority of their 7-game winning streak throughout February. So although the expectation that Nick Robertson was going to come up to the Maple Leafs lineup and boost Max Domi's offensive game didn't exactly pan out, he did cut out a role for himself beside Tavares and McMahon on the third line throughout February. And while playing on that third line, he did show flashes of the offensive tenacity that got him the big league nod in the first place.
One time. Domi, and he fired it wide. Robertson scores! Power play goal! Nick Robertson!
Robertson's demotion to the AHL is not so much to blame on his lack of performance in the NHL this season, but rather that he was simply the odd man out in this lineup. The truth is that the Leafs didn't want to waive Bobby McMahon, Martin Jones, or Noah Gregor and lose them for nothing on the waiver wire, and right now, with the Calle Jarnkrok return and the acquisition of Ilya Lyubushkin, there simply wasn't room on this team right now for Nick Robertson. My prediction is that Nicky Bobby will be back up with the Maple Leafs shortly after the trade deadline, when they no longer have a contract limit, but rather have to worry about being cap compliant. So, with Nick Robertson out of the lineup, what is next for this Maple Leafs team as we head into the trade deadline? Well, Tree Living and Maple Leafs management have already made their first major move of the deadline, acquiring or reacquiring Ilya Lyubushkin for some right-handed help on the back end. In wake of Giordano's head injury and subsequent placement on LTIR, the Lyubushkin move was a necessary one. Many Leaf fans are freaking out that coaching and management believe that Lyubushkin can be Riley's full-time D partner on the top pairing, but I just cannot bring myself to believe that is true. What I do believe is Brad Tree Living will go out and spend on a top 4 right-handed D-man and likely 1 or 2 more forwards to add to the bottom 6. Some names I would love to see the Maple Leafs target at the deadline are Sean Walker, Colton Parayko, or Noah Hannafin on the more expensive side, and if they want to add a value piece like Will Borgen, Connor Murphy, or even Nick Jensen, I wouldn't be too mad. Names like Matt Dumba and David Savard to me are very typical deadline guys that I would like to see the Maple Leafs avoid. Matt Dumba has shown an extreme offensive decline this season with Arizona and just simply is not the player he used to be in Minnesota. And David Savard to me is just simply a guy they don't need. What I would love to see this team acquire is a true puck-moving defenseman. And when I say puck-moving defenseman, I don't mean offensive defenseman, because a guy like Tyson Barrie on this back end would be a disaster. What I mean with guys like Walker, Parayko, and Hannafin are that these guys are impact guys. If the Maple Leafs are going to spend their very limited draft capital and prospect pool, please have the acquisitions be impactful and purposeful. Brad Treliving has shown in the past with Calgary that he has a tendency to nibble around the edges at deadline time, whether that's due to Brad's unwillingness to make a big move or Calgary's good not great positioning at deadline time most years. Well, that's left to be seen. One note I thought was interesting was Nick LaFlame on Twitter. Although he was being facetious after the Avalanche win, he tweeted, "Leafs trade deadline is their own players getting good." But I think there's something to that. Tyler Bertuzzi has got his offensive spark back after being moved to power play 1. Nylander is back to his dominant self after his post-contract slump. Mitch Marner is playing unbelievable hockey over the past few weeks, and that's not even to mention the down-the-lineup offense from guys like McMahon that they are consistently getting. Even the fourth line of Reeves, Holmberg, and Kampf have found their stride offensively. They're playing a ton of minutes in the offensive zone and have improved drastically on the defensive side of the puck. Remember when Ryan Reaves finished like a -2 every night to start the season? We don't see that anymore. That fourth line, Ryan Reaves, who we all thought was going to be done, like career over. He's got some jump in his game nowadays.
He'll dump it in. Ryan Reaves out. A 3-year deal to go to Toronto, worth over $4 million in the offseason. Camp going towards the net, score! 2 quick goals for Toronto, a minute 10 apart.
Along with the offensive spark that the Maple Leafs have shown throughout late January and early February, they've also shown that they're no longer a pushover. I mean, this is a tough team. 1 minute ago, as I'm recording this, Matt Rempe and Ryan Reaves just dropped the gloves. What a tilt. Remember the early season narrative that the Maple Leafs didn't have enough team toughness and that they weren't standing up for their teammates? I mean, that's gone completely out of the window. I mean, obviously, Morgan Riley and Ridley Gregg is the easy example here, but look at the second line of Nylander, Domi, and Bertuzzi. That line is downright gritty, and they'll do it with a smile on their face. Not to mention that they have an absolute ambulance wearing number 75 on their fourth line, who will wipe you in a fight and is playing unbelievable hockey right now. So, to wrap it up, I believe Nick Robertson has proved he can compete at the NHL level. This player is far too good for the AHL, and he is going to light it up with the Marlies in the ensuing weeks. We will have to wait and see if Nick Robertson will regain his role on the third line post-trade deadline or if it will be replaced by an out-of-market guy. But honestly, Nick Robertson's volatile position on this NHL lineup proves one thing to me, and it is that the Maple Leafs are ready to make noise in the playoffs. In my opinion, Nick Robertson has lived up to expectations in this most recent stint with the Maple Leafs. The fact that this caliber player that would fit right into the bottom six of a Colorado or Edmonton may not crack the lineup post-trade deadline for the Maple Leafs or maybe even used as a trade chip means this team is ready to compete in the playoffs, and I am jacked for it. So those are my thoughts on Nick Robertson, the Maple Leafs, and the future of both. If you want to check out more of my articles and my videos, subscribe to this channel as well as check out my website, which will be linked in the description. Thanks for watching.